This is the production possibilities curves practice packet. Okay, so question 8, part A. Okay, so high unemployment, following a period of high unemployment, the U.S. enters the fighting of World War II. So this is macro, okay? We have consumer goods and capital goods. It doesn't matter which axis you put yours on, but just make sure that things that you're moving in the right direction on these things. So it starts out with a period of high unemployment, okay? So that means production is lower than normal, but the amount of resources we have hasn't changed, right? Our production possibilities haven't changed. We're just underproducing for the resources we have. So we start anywhere inside the PPF is fine, okay? And then the U.S. enters fighting of World War II. So instead of resources being somewhat unemployed, we're moving them to the production of capital goods. So war goods are capital goods. So we're going to make more capital goods. We're not going to make more consumer goods because of the war. Looks like a lot of folks, like everybody, thought this would shift the PPF out, but going to war does not magically increase the number of resources we have available, okay? And at least in the U.S., because we've not been bombed during wars, our production abilities are not reduced by the war. Okay, so war is extremely destructive. It destroys a lot of resources, right? We make this capital just to send it to be blown up somewhere else. But our own factories are not getting bombed, so our production abilities are not decreased. Okay. Then, part B, following a period of full employment, so we're starting on the PPF line. Okay, so again, consumer goods, capital goods, starting on the PPF line, anywhere is fine. The U.S. accelerated the war in Vietnam, so making more capital goods, like we said before, for the war, and the war on poverty, okay, which is an increase in welfare spending, okay, so that's going to increase the purchase of consumer goods, okay. That's going to mean more food stamps, which increases demand for food. It's going to mean more housing subsidies, which increases demand for housing, right? So we're going to see an increase in demand for consumer goods. So we can only increase the production of both of those goods by producing outside the PPF, and this is unsustainable. This is also a macro situation. Part C. Okay, discrimination against women and minorities. U.S. legally ended discrimination in the workplace. Okay, so initially I thought maybe this would expand the PPF, but if you think about it, the resources are not changing. Okay, this is the same people who previously were not able to fully use their abilities because they were discriminated against. So I picked a point inside the PPF. Okay, and now they are able to use their abilities fully, and so now we're producing at a point on the PPF line. Okay, and this is a macro situation also. Okay, then part D. All right, so lumber companies logging on publicly owned land, now they can't. Okay, so this is a micro situation affecting the market for wood. Okay, so I picked 2 goods made from wood, desks and chairs, but you could pick any 2 goods made from wood, but now we're less able to produce those than we were before. Okay, so wrong if your axes are macro axes, that is incorrect, because this doesn't affect overall production in the U.S. It just means we're going to be less able to produce things made from wood. Okay, part E. So before the Gulf War, Iraq was a full employment of their resources, so they were at a point on the PPF line, doesn't really matter where, okay? But during the war, many of their facilities were bombed and people were killed. So this is macro. We have capital goods and consumer goods. And many people were killed, and factories were bombed. So there's less ability to produce, so we do shift the PPF line in. Okay, so the factories are bombed, the resources are destroyed, the productive abilities are affected. So remember, if your production abilities are affected, you can shift the PPF line. Otherwise, do not shift the PPF line. So almost always shifts are on the PPF line, and rarely do shifts come on of the PPF. Okay, so this worksheet that has quite a few shifts of PPF lines is very unrepresentative of what you're going to see on the AP test. Right, on the AP test, you're rarely going to have line shifts. Like, you might have one line shift in the story, you're not going to have several. Okay, most of the shifts you see are movement along the line. All right, part F. Okay, so Americans have been at full employment for almost a decade, so we know that we're starting on the PPF line because we're at full employment. Okay, we're fully and sustainably using the resources. The savings rate dropped from 6%, right? So some capital goods were getting produced, to then 0%. So we're only consuming consumer goods. Okay. So remember, if people are not saving, that means they're spending. Okay. They're buying consumer goods. So firms are going to switch from producing some capital goods and mostly consumer goods to now producing only consumer goods and no capital goods, because consumers are demanding all consumer goods. Nobody wants to save, so resources can go to making capital goods. Okay, so we talked about that today on Thursday. So if you weren't clear about that when we were first doing this worksheet, now you should understand that better. Part G. Following a period of full employment of the resources, Ethiopia experienced drought and overfarming of the land. So the ability to farm things was being affected. Okay, I think it makes sense to list this as micro, because it's not affecting the production of consumer goods and capital goods particularly. It's affecting specifically these farmed goods, right? So you could have called this, like, I don't know what they grow in Ethiopia, but rice and wheat or something, right? So it's like farm product number 1 and farmed product number 2, right? But they're becoming less able to produce those goods because of the drought and the overfarming of the land. So it's becoming less fertile, less able to produce, so the curve shifts in. Okay, and part H, mild recession. So you start out inside the PPF, okay? And recession is a macro word, so this is macro. We have capital goods and consumer goods. New development in computer technology caused many businesses to invest in new computer systems. So they're switching from production of consumer and capital goods that would have been, more consumer goods than now, because they want to produce more. They want to buy more capital goods because this new technology exists. So you might have seen new technology and thought, oh, technology is a shifter of the PPF. That's true, but only once it is up and running. Okay, so firms buying the new technology is firms demanding new capital. Okay, so increasing the demand for capital and reducing the demand for consumer goods. Okay, right, because they can only build up that new capital if the consumers are saving more. Okay, that is, consumers are buying less consumer goods. Okay, I think we just went through part H of the homework. So good luck, guys. You are amazing, and send me a message if you have any questions.